We've actually got a Band-Aid here in the studio with us. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the news. Good morning and welcome to the news. I'm Donald Levine. I'm Johnny Coyle. And I'm Lee Wayne. Today's stories will include the origins of jazz, the rising organized crime situation, and the possible stock market crash in the near future. Sounds like the cat's pajamas, eh, Johnny?
Right you are, Lee. Today's episode is brought to you by Crystal Radios.
I'm Quinn Kingsley. I'll be speaking to you about the origins of jazz and the characteristics of the Jazz Age. The Jazz Age brought a whole new culture to the United States. People had begun to live in the moment. They were starting new lives. This new era affected everyone, and jazz is what changed it all. Jazz originated from a mixture of African music and rhythms and American band traditions. Charles, or Buddy, Bolden, was from New Orleans. He was born on September 6, 1877, and later became a successful ragtime and jazz musician. Some could call him the first jazz musician of the age. For him, though, ragtime and jazz music was played by Scott Joplin, a man from a poor Southern family. He had a huge influence over the development of jazz. Jazz has several characteristics that make it jazz. It has a very distinct set of instruments, and the musicians use many techniques such as improvisation and syncopated music rhythms. Syncopated rhythms are when the musician puts an emphasis on a normally weak beat. Jazz brought on new dances, forms of art, games, writing, and many, many other things. It made it much easier for black men and women to get jobs in performing or art. This was so important during this time because after World War I, veterans were looking for just a good time. Everyone wanted to stop making plans and stop caring about what was coming next, and jazz granted them this. Businesses began to recognize this shift in interest and began to change their marketing strategies. With the invention of the radio, people began to listen to music in their homes. This gave businesses the opportunity to advertise to a whole new set of consumers. The Jazz Age affected every American in some way or another, and it still affects their lives today.
Yikes, never knew there was so much involved in jazz, eh? Coming up next, we've got info on these fine young Janes they call flappers, but stay tuned because we have first a word from our sponsors.
Are you tired of washing every single shirt one by one? Did you get a job during the Great War? Well, now you can simply throw all your laundry in Alva J. Fisher's new washing machine. Unlike other earlier washing machines, this one puts your clothes through multiple stages of wash, including boiling, soaping, tossing, and turning. All you have to do is simply put your clothes in and dry them when they're done. It can be yours for a low price of $55 due to the mass production of this product.
Welcome to the nature segment. Today we'll be observing a rare and fascinating creature called the flapper. Join us today to learn how to recognize the flapper, what's in a flapper's diet, and the flapper's migratory patterns. Now we enter the most common roosting place for a flapper, known as a speakeasy. The illegal alcohol and constant jazz music playing in the background attracts the flappers and other similar species of sorts. I see one out the bar. Let's get a closer look. What a fascinating creature it is. The curly short feathers on its head are like no other species. And if you're wondering how to pick out a flapper, look for the short, stilt revealing skirt and brightly colored beak and eyes. Ah, it appears to be drinking a special flapper nectar known commonly as gin. This flapper is drinking it quite well. Yes, the flapper might even find a potential mate drinking this.
Can I have some privacy here?
Oh look, the flapper speaks. A flapper call can range anywhere from "Where's the moonshine" to "How's my lipstick look?" and even the occasional pickup line if it's the right time of year.
Are you hitting on me? Sorry, hi-hat. Frank's clothes. Beat it.
Oh no, the flapper appears to become aggressive. This is terrible. She might have taken my presence in her territory as threatening. A common active defense for a flapper, if dealing with a male, is either kick a man where it hurts or toss the remains of her nectar on the male's face. Let's back away slowly before the flapper starts using its defenses. Another common defense for the flapper is to call upon the flapper's mate, also known as a sheik, who will protect the flapper from other potential mates.
Yeah, you better hope I'm not gonna call him my man.
These creatures have been increasing in population more and more nowadays, so much that a rival species, the proper lady, are becoming endangered. Who knows what the flapper will evolve into years to come. These untamed beasts have been taking over the political food chain ever since the 19th Amendment was passed. They and similar species are more common than ever. And the flapper's habitat has henceforth been changed into a more feminist environment. Thank you for joining us on the Nature segment. Join us next week when we observe the most ferocious, terrifying, deceiving creature in the world, the politician.
Better keep an eye out for those creatures, eh?
Now let's go over to the sports desk with Chip Flanagan.
Hello, I'm Chip Flanagan, and today I'd like to talk about two new sports you won't want to miss, football and baseball. These sports are not only fun and inexpensive, but they're also boosting our economy sky high. But now, I'd like to talk about a rising star. The University of Illinois had a stunning game against Michigan yesterday, and we actually have the halfback of that team in the studio to talk so we can ask him some questions. So please welcome Red Grange.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Mr. Grange, what exactly happened in yesterday's game?
Well, yesterday's game started out slowly, but as the game went on, we really started to work together.
And how many touchdowns did you score?
We scored 9 in the whole game, but I myself scored 5.
In how long?
I scored 4 of them in just 12 minutes.
Wow, well you don't see that every day, folks. 5 touchdowns in 4 minutes. So, how long have you been playing football?
Well, I've loved the game since I was just a kid, but I started playing in high school, and I played throughout high school. And I now play at the University of Illinois.
And what are your plans for the future? Do you plan a career in sports, or do you plan a different job?
Well, definitely a sports career, because now that is a viable job. With the 8-hour workday, people have time to see games and buy tickets and merchandise. So, to answer your question, yes, I am going to continue a sports career.
Well, thanks for coming on, Mr. Grange. And by the way, folks, head on down to the stadium and buy a baseball ticket. Selling for just $1. It's fun for the whole family. So go on down. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear that Grange has got quite the arm.
On a more depressing note, we have some coverage on the whole Sacco and Vanzetti fiasco of recent, and then another word from our sponsors. Take it away, Miss Cusack Miller and Miss Davis.
Although it took place many years ago, the Sacco and Vanzetti trial is still a very interesting event to look back on.
It appears that it has become one of the most important and controversial trials of the U.S.
A quick overview of it is that Sacco and Vanzetti were convicted and eventually executed for the murder of 2 men and the theft of $15 million.
There were many things about this trial that drew so much attention to it.
One thing was the peculiar testimonies. Many of the people testifying made statements that were psychologically impossible or discredited by other information, yet many of these were still used in court.
Another problem was the method the police used to identify them. Instead of lining Sacco and Vanzetti up with other men of their same race, is to allow prejudice to not become a factor in identifying them, the police instead isolated Sacco and Vanzetti when the time came.
There are many facts to this case that were manipulated to plant false thoughts or images in the juror's head. While the prosecution style was convincing, the methods were all based off of inferences.
The prejudice that surrounded this case was incredible. Sacco and Vanzetti were accused many times of not loving America, and a district attorney took their confession of radicalism, exaggerating it into something that made them seem evil and guilty.
Fairly recent evidence shows the whole trial was an effort of the district attorney and Department of Justice to get rid of Sacco and Vanzetti because of their red activities.
This would make sense, due to the fact that nearly all of the evidence of the case pointed away from Sacco and Vanzetti and towards the Morale gang, especially because a member of it even admitted it was responsible for the South Braintree crime.
Further proof of this is Judge Thayer's far too emotional and unfactual approaches in the case, as well as his continual denial to hold another trial when new evidence was presented that could have cleared Sacco and Vanzetti.
Also, the agents investigating the South Braintree crime admitted that neither Sacco nor Vanzetti had the skill to pull off such a thing, yet they still worked to convict them.
Overall, to this day, the Sacco and Vanzetti trial continues to be a mystery, yet still a very important part to our history.
Are you constantly getting small scrapes and cuts on your fingers? A Band-Aid is a brand new product that can help you to keep your cuts well treated and protected. A Band-Aid is a small adhesive bandage that gently absorbs blood from small wounds. It has more strength than a homemade bandage and is more durable, lightweight, and flexible. Band-Aids are mass-produced, which results in amazing reliability, condition, and low prices. Why worry when you get small cuts on your hands? A Band-Aid is the amazing solution that you should buy for your home today.
We've actually got a Band-Aid here in the studio with us. Darn technology. Oh, we've got some more current trials to hear about next. Mr. Park, Mr. Chen.
Along with the Sacco and Vanzetti trial, another famous trial was the Scopes monkey trial. In 1925 in Dayton, Tennessee, young John Scopes was convicted of teaching evolution, which had been made illegal due to the Butler Act, which had been passed earlier in the year. Basically, the theory of evolution, revealed by Charles Darwin in the late 1800s, showed that all animals had come from earlier life forms by means of natural selection.
Most politicians back then were Christians, so the thought of evolution was against their beliefs. As a result, many supported the Butler Act. In the trial, Scopes was defended by Clarence Darrow, a famed American lawyer, and was prosecuted by William Bryan, who had been the 41st Secretary of the United States.
The trial lasted 7 days and took on many subjects, such as Adam and Eve, the Butler Act, and literal interpretations of the Bible. After a heated debate, Scopes lost and was fined $100, but the federal government eventually overturned his conviction because Darrow made it look like Bryan wanted the entire nation to practice Christianity.
It was eventually found out that Scopes had violated the act on purpose in order to give the town a small boost in its economy. This did happen as hundreds of people flocked the town to see the trial, and many reporters, including one from Britain. Radio stations and newspapers alike wrote front pages to report on the case.
While the fundamentalists did win the trial, they lost the bigger battle. Even so, the idea of science versus religion began to grow, as well as an anti-evolution movement. By 1927, there were at least 13 states that were considering some form of anti-evolution law.
The Scopes trial also influenced the radio a lot, as many people eagerly tuned in to listen to the event. Newspapers and magazines also humorously ridiculed the entire case, calling it a cross between a holy war and a circus, and also calling it a matter to laugh about.
And so the question remains, will evolution be outlawed for being taught in schools, or will it remain for years to come?
Sure wouldn't want to be wrapped up in those cases. Say, Lee, have you been hearing about them papers lately? Of course, my friend's Dick. He's been looking into them a lot recently. We also have our own staff looking into the matter. Go ahead, Miss Ray and Mr. Partington.
Last Tuesday, on a quiet afternoon in Clovis, California, $31,000 was stolen from First State Bank. As the owner of this bank, I am extremely disappointed by the occurrence of this event. The robbers have been identified as two young men, Thomas Griffin and Felix Sloper. Our cashier, Mr. Housen, was alone in the bank until Griffin entered the building. He asked for change for a $20 bill, and while Mr. Housen was counting out the money, Sloper entered through a back door and crept up behind him. As the unsuspecting cashier turned around, he was greeted by a gun in his face. Griffin and Sloper tied his hands together, locked him in a vault, then stole the money. The robbers next ran out of the bank and into their runaway car, soon leaving an accomplice and ditching the vehicle. This robbery has put our small town of Clovis into a dreary state of being. Many kind, patriotic citizens have invested their money into this bank, and now their well-earned cash is no longer attainable. The economy of our town has also been considerably endangered by this event, as well as our political influence on neighboring cities. Many citizens are now concerned with their safety and economical protection in our town, such as Miss Loretta Ray.
It's quite disturbing. This is the only money I have left. But as these robberies continue to sweep the country west of the Mississippi, many citizens, like myself, have mixed emotions. Our granddaddies were pioneers, men who fought their way across the plains in search of a brighter future for the younger generations. But now we can't pay back the debt on our tractors, and our households are plagued by the banks. To see these robbers destroying the banks is bittersweet because we know it is wrong, but at the same time, some of the robbers destroyed the loan records and created a Robin Hood-like persona for themselves and are seen as heroes or icons. As you know, this robbery was conducted by Thomas Griffin and Felix Sloper, two residents of California, who promptly escaped the scene via stolen vehicle. It is rather interesting that the increase of robberies is most definitely associated with the rising popularity of the automobile. This newly accessible invention has made crossing state lines a breeze, and it seems like the cars are the felons have quite an easy time stealing all of these cars.
Have you had any personal experiences with robbers or criminals?
Not quite, but my sister over in Oklahoma has mentioned several times what a stir Pretty Boy Floyd has been making. She even says his robbing has caused banks, including her own, to raise the insurance policies. Like many other bandits these days, Pretty Boy Floyd is just Charles Floyd's nickname. Charles Floyd really hates this nickname because an owner of a store that he tried to rob gave it to him because he had an adorable baby face.
Poor sod, that Mr. Partington. Should have seen it coming.
While many ragamuffins are using simple hit-and-run techniques to carry out the deeds, these new hard-boiled fellows think they're all hotsy-totsy and have begun selling their hooch with more organized tactics.
Enough of that! A quick break, but stay tuned!
Earlier this week, 7 people in Chicago's North Side died in what is now being called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It is thought that this was to strike back at Bug Moran's North Side gang for increasingly bold hijackings of Al Capone's South Side gang of the trucks that they used to transport bootleg liquor. Bug Moran's gang also assassinated 2 presidents of the Sicilian Union. This is a Sicilian-American organization which was rumored to control almost all of the Italian-American vote within the U.S. and, along with Al Capone and the Chicago outfit, controls most of the Chicago bootleg liquor industry. Al Capone is the leader of the Chicago outfit, also called the Chicago Mafia or Chicago Syndicate, which is known for controlling the Chicago area and other cities around the world for transporting and selling bootleg liquor. Capone and his outfit go from the maker to the buyer, all under the radar of the police. They rarely encounter any trouble from the law because of the extreme planning and professionalism gone into executing the operation. These gangs take the liquor to speakeasies and other clubs and sell that liquor illegally. If it weren't for Prohibition, the current troubles between these gangs would not exist. During these current times of economic wealth, everyone has a little extra money in their pockets, and they are willing to spend it on the high prices the speakeasies charge in order to have a drink. The gangs are constantly fighting about where each one can sell their liquor. Past conflicts of the northern and southern gangs of Chicago have typically resulted in drive-by shootings and assassinations. This most recent conflict, while more violent than past, is still just another example of Chicago's gangs fighting over the bootleg liquor industry.
Have you ever wished for a weapon perfect for organized crime? Well, John T. Thompson has your solution with his new Tommy gun. This weapon is small enough to fit in a violin case, yet powerful enough to kill all your rival alcohol smugglers with one magazine. This new invention is good enough for the military. Why can't it be good enough for the bootleggers? Its .45 caliber bullets are common, cheap, and most importantly, powerful. The Tommy gun is a revolutionary new weapon and can be yours for only $100.
That Al Capone sure is one dangerous bimbo. Yep. The Klan has also been spreading its influence around the nation with not too keen motives. Here to talk about this and other immigration business, we have Miss Strouderman and Miss Williams, joined by Mr. Rateb and Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, America. Since the Great War ended, America has been isolating itself from the world and attempting to become less involved in world trade affairs. Unfortunately, because of this, many Americans are developing negative feelings towards foreigners.
America's economy after the war was significantly better than other countries who fought in the war. The war for Germany cost approximately $37 billion, and for Great Britain it cost $35 billion. For America, it only cost $23 billion. Some Americans feared that immigrants would come and take their jobs, so the government set up immigration quotas. Since America kept immigrants out, there were more jobs for Americans to take, therefore further improving the economy.
This just added to the hate against immigrants that was from general racism and the conflict between countries. Nativism, the policy of protecting the interests of native-born citizens over those of immigrants, is another large reason why America felt disdain towards immigrants.
Go America! Woohoo! America's #1!
That's exactly how some people felt about their country. Some Americans feel that they are better than other people from other nations just because they are born in America. They thought, if you're not American, you're not as good as me.
So what you're saying is that they think immigrants are #2?
Yes, exactly. And because they felt they were more worthy and they deserved the jobs more, the government set up immigration quotas. These quotas restricted immigration from many countries.
In 1925 through 1927, approximately 140,000 immigrants were let in from Northwest Europe and Scandinavia. Approximately 18,000 immigrants were let in from Eastern and Southern Europe. And from all other countries, only 3,745 immigrants were let in. The immigration quota of 1924 reduced the previous quota of 3% of the immigrants who were living in America in 1910 to only 2% of the immigrants who were living in America in 1890. This discriminated against Eastern and Southern Europeans because many of them had come to the U.S. after 1890. The European situation was better than the Asians, though. In 1917, most of the Asian race that lived in the Asiatic Barred Zone were banned from America.
The exclusion of immigrants only promotes the idea of nativism in our citizens. Not only do the citizens hate immigrants, but they also fear them too.
Racism, nativism, isolationism, and xenophobia are all accumulating into so much hate for these undesirable immigrants that anti-immigrant groups are being formed.
Lots of Americans, including President Wilson, feel that America should be kept American, and ideas such as socialism, communism, and anarchism are European in origin and are a potential threat to the stability of the United States. So not only were the immigrants hated, but so were the communists and anarchists. Unfortunately, with all these forms of hate comes rising the most visible form of reactionaries. The second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan is one example.
The Ku Klux Klan is a notorious extremist hate group against blacks, Jews, Catholics, communists, and many other ethnic groups that they deemed un-American. The group promoted white supremacy and intense nativism.
They run hate crimes, have riots, and vandalize property under the nickname the KKK. Now, while the group is at a peak, it has 4 to 5 million members.
Now, on to David and Alex with more in-depth information on the Ku Klux Klan.
The KKK, or Ku Klux Klan, is a white supremacist group who are against the advancement of African Americans. The group believes that African Americans are the source of many of America's problems, and that it is their fault that we entered the Great War. Now, Alex, would you like to talk about the Klan's biography?
Sure. The KKK originated from the southern United States, and nearly about half of them live in Michigan. At their beginning between 1865 and 1870, the Klan had around 550,000 members. Now, in 1920, they have over 3 million members. This is probably due to the fact that African Americans were starting to move more into the white life, taking jobs and getting better education. Over the last decade, we've seen a tremendous amount of this, including the Harlem Renaissance.
Very true. And one of the main reasons the Klan has such a hatred toward African Americans is because they want to keep America native-born. For this reason, they've taken a tremendous stance behind the immigration quotas over the last 12 years and to reduce the amount of immigrants in the United States.
As well as the stance behind the 18th and 19th Amendments, the KKK is extremely for prohibition and actually backed up the 19th Amendment to give women the right to vote. They then wanted to use the women to ratify the 18th Amendment and ban alcohol.
The KKK has not only taken political steps, though. So far, the group has killed around 3,000 people, mostly black men and women, by hanging, shooting, burning, and beating. This hostility has already started to greatly affect our economy. So far, over 1 million colored people have moved from the southern United States northern to avoid these attacks, greatly reducing the business in the south and bringing up the number of unemployed people in the north. This group is incredibly determined and very dangerous. They have already greatly impacted the United States and don't seem to have any chance of giving up their mission anytime soon.
Blasted extremists those pikers are.
Well, say, Donald, ever notice how booming this economy's been lately? Why, no, I sure haven't. Come to think of it, though, I've got a bit more dough today than when I was but a fish. Well, here's Mr. Cornell interviewing Henry Ford himself, explaining why.
Welcome to the show, Henry.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
So, Mr. Ford, I understand that you're the proud owner of the Ford Motor Company and would be willing to share a little about this booming economy.
Yes, Mr. Cornell, gladly.
So, Mr. Ford, why don't you tell me a little about industrial production?
Well, during the wonderful 1920s, not only did industrial production increase by 50%, but the average income of American families also increased by 50%.
Well, that's impressive.
Yes, it is. This time period was very much like a golden age for some families. Just about a million people made over $5,000 each year.
Really? That's a pretty large number.
Yes, sir. I myself sold over 15 million Ford Model Ts.
I see that you have a new advertisement available.
Yes, I do. It's right here.
for the Ford Model A.
Well, how much is it?
It starts at $385 and goes up to $1,400.
Well, that's cheap.
Yes, I'm able to sell these cars so cheaply because of the assembly line techniques I created myself.
Well, thank you for the interesting interview.
You are so welcome.
Interesting. I must say those Model Ts sure are swanky. Well, folks, be sure to stay tuned after the break because we've got a fascinating presentation for you today.
That's right, Johnny. Could all of this spending lead to some sort of crash in the economy?
Stay tuned!
Do you wish that you could eat fresh-tasting food year-round? Bird's Eye Frosted Foods makes this dream a reality. When food is frozen, it retains its vitamins and flavor, which is why Clarence Birdseye worked hard to find the perfect way to package and sell small frozen meals. With prices year-round that everyone can afford, we can predict that Americans' eating habits will soon change. America's new lifestyle means that you should be spending less time in the kitchen and more time having fun. Now anyone can cook a delicious meal in a few minutes by Birdseye at a store near you.
Through this present decade, the eastern U.S. has been going through drastic economic change, all for the better. However, we still yet remain ignorant of the depression that has been sweeping the West. During the Great War, the need to produce agricultural products led to a massive amount of merchandise clogging markets, while the farmers went out of business. The rapid expansion of industry, benign tide of Coolidge prosperity, has been detrimental to people as companies are now taking over the market, driving up the small businesses, and driving up the unemployment rate. A very common danger today is the idea of installment buying, where you pay a higher price over a long period of time, rather than paying what something's worth up front. This will take money away from the public, put everyone into debt, and leave nothing for the investors in the stock market and crash it along with the economies of the rest of the civilized world. We must change if we are to escape this deadly plague. First, the industry must be tied and regulated, or they will grow too big, pushing more people into unemployment and debt, and losing their value by lack of investors, thus crashing themselves. Lastly, we must conserve our riches because all the reckless spending will drive us into debt and kill our economy. Money doesn't grow on trees. We must all realize and acknowledge the fact that if we're not careful, we will end up jobless, in debt, and with a crashed economy. The golden age will not last forever.
Sure hope that doesn't happen. I just got a new house for my dog.
I'm confident it won't happen. Well, folks, that's it for today's stories. Be sure to join us tomorrow for some more of us beating our gums.